Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto falls in love with Esdeath? Movie 1. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and also make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, Hector Flores, and support him for writing this awesome fanfic. Link is in the description. Let's start the story. My name is something I learned being plastered on my cell door. I was a war orphan in the village that was my prison, or should I say the village where my prison was built in. Since I could remember the village threw all of the orphans into the prison, and had us fight for the cages, and the council's sick enjoyment. Only those that survived till they were 9 years old were allowed to become a ninja. That is what my village was pretty much known for, training ruthless assassins, spies, and saboteurs. The thing was that they didn't only make us fight each other, no, they made us fight monsters they captured. By the time I was 6 I had killed a few monsters, and had it not been for the mercy of a lady vampire, I would have probably starved to death. At the time I didn't consider it much of a kindness, but, as I grew older I understood it. As it was, she bites me, and after a few minutes I grew incredibly hungry. I felt a thirst that made my throat hurt. I launched myself against her, and fed on her blood till there was nothing left. She could have easily pushed me aside, but instead, she smiled, as I drank all her blood, and she was smiling, as her body slowly turned to ashes. The arena where we fought was underground, so I never had to worry about sunlight, and, as I turned 7 I figured out that drinking the blood of my enemy didn't only sate my hunger, but healed me, and I would gain the knowledge and blood traits of those I drank from. It got so bad that they began to talk to me like I was a monster myself, but finally after my 9th birthday I was allowed to train. Not that I needed it, I had many rogue ninjas to drink my fill from over the years. The only side effect was that my body aged at an extremely slow rate. I stopped aging altogether when I turned 21. That is when it hit me, the pain of watching my friends, and eventually lovers grow old, and die. I lived for thousands of years, and never once did I stop training, but I guess I also became rather detached. I once felt sorry for killing someone or even a monster, but now that I think of it, I find it silly, almost foolish. Civilizations rose and fell, and nothing seemed to have changed for me. It was always a eat or be eaten sort of world. That is when I first met the man that would unify the world. I actually offered to give him my gift of a longer life, but he laughed. No thank you Naruto, I don't think I could live like you do. When I meet my end I want to die, as a human. I appreciate the help with making these new weapons my friend, but even as I die these weapons shall defend my empire for centuries after my death. I looked at my friend, and told him he was foolish having so much faith in humans. When someone gained power they always wanted more, and that could corrupt them to things that were no longer human. He asked me how I could say that, having so much power, and skills myself. I looked at my friend, and laughed, and since when did I ever tell you I was a human, to begin with? Hunting all these dangerous beasts was exciting, and if I had to admit it, there was one type of creature that I simply loved to fight, and they were large covered in scales, and some could breathe fire. I just loved fighting these dragons, they were always so much fun. As my friend died, and I saw the looks his wife was giving me I decided to move out of the capital. I guess I could understand, I look exactly the same way as the day I met her, and she, on the other hand, became old, wrinkly, and very abrasive in the way of talking to people, or maybe that was just with me. A small town in the south of the capital was the place I ended up calling home. I helped the people build their homes, kept the place safe, and even helped with the planting and collecting of crops every once in a while. 3 kids were practically like my own children. They were orphans, and I taught them everything I learned in regards to skills from my academy days. Watching these kids grow up was a joy, and I guess I really liked the feeling of pride, as I saw them each become young men and women. Tsumi followed the path of the blade, much like me. Seo took the path of the dagger, and Yatsu was an archer that made me feel quite proud, as I saw the accuracy of his shots. It was a sad day when my 3 kids decided to go to the capital, and earn enough money to buy the land the village was on. As long as we didn't own the land, the imperial government could demand immense amounts in taxes, so much that not even with my shadow clones could I keep everyone in the village well fed. The second sad thing in my life was that I realized since the days with my friend the Emperor, was that humans lost the ability to use chakra altogether. It was almost as if the sage of the 6 paths had removed his blessing from the entire human race. My students knew the technical and knowledge-based skills of a ninja, but they could never be the same caliber as my old friends were. They could never perform the simplest of jutsus, and could never even imagine using ninjutsu or. After a solid week of worrying about my 3 kids, I decided to return to the capital. My only goal was to find my kids, and if someone dared harm them, I would make the person or people pay. Nobody harms my kids, and gets away with it. As I walked towards the capital I saw something rather amusing. A pair of merchants were having trouble getting the wheel of their cart unstuck. As I walked over to see if I could help them a large dragon came out of the ground. It's an earth dragon running for your lives. What good would it do to run? The thing was able to kill them, as they run anyways. I walked over between the dragon and the merchants. I looked at the dragon. Yay, I know you are bored. Come on, leave these humans alone, and come, and have some fun fighting me instead. As long as you don't mind my lunch, I am very hungry. I could swear that the earth dragon began laughing at me. I took hold of my katana and began to run towards him. He threw massive boulders at me, and I cut his right arm off. Oh come on, regrow your limb, get up. The fun has barely started. We fought with each other for 5 minutes, but I cut off both limbs and his tail. He managed to scratch me here and there, causing my armor to become ripped and stained in my blood. As I saw that he was no longer able to fight, I jumped up and landed on his shoulder. I bit him and began to have my fill of his blood. He frantically tried to push me away, but it was no good. The more blood I drank, the weaker he got, and I was very hungry. I finished drinking his blood, and the corpse fell down to the ground in a heap. I walked over to the merchants, who looked more scared of me than they had been of the dragon. Come on, move aside. I will get you wagon out of that. I walked over and picked the cart up with one hand and set it on the road. Man, that was both frightening and amazing. Mind telling me where are you headed? Maybe we could even offer you a lift. I looked at him, and I knew what he really wanted. He wanted someone to escort him as far as he could get my help. That would be nice. I am headed towards the capital. My kids went there to make it big in the Imperial military to help our village, but I can't help but worry about them. I am headed to see what is happening with them. They haven't sent a letter in a long time. The merchant next to the man who offered me a ride looked at me with a sad look on his face. I wouldn't go there expecting a happy reunion. In the capital, it's the people you need to watch out for. They are more dangerous than the dragon you just killed. As we got closer to the capital, I heard things I would never expect from the empire my friend established. The things were horrible: rampant corruption, the civilians didn't feel safe, and they were scared of their government more than the threat of monsters. The worst is that the nobles were not as noble as the title implied. The imperial army was a band of criminals under the command of a power-hungry and cruel prime minister. I said my thanks to the merchants, and I began walking through the streets of the capital. Everything looked beautiful, clean, and showing the economy was doing great, but I knew better than to trust the gilded exterior that I was looking at. It was all a show, and one look in a young woman's face, I knew how miserable people in the capital really were. I decided to go to a bar and order myself a drink. A rather large-breasted woman sat down right in front of me and smiled at me. Her outfit sure was not leaving much to the imagination. Her hair was golden blonde, and she looked like she was trying to con me out of my money. You don't get as old as I am without knowing how to look beneath the underneath. Hey, handsome. I have been looking at you since entering the capital. Can't help but to think that you are looking for something or someone. Buy a girl a few drinks, and I will help you find what you are looking for. I guess it couldn't hurt, and I got to spend some time with this blonde knockout, so I saw no reason to say no. Sure, bartender, give me a couple of mugs of your best beer for me and this lady here. I could see on his face that he didn't think of her as anything remotely worthy to be called a lady. He placed the 2 mugs and left in a hurry as soon as I paid him. I guess this bar doesn't run tabs. I am looking for my 3 kids. They had the crazy idea of coming to the capital to make it big and help purchase the village we live in. I haven't heard anything from them, so naturally I got worried. That is when the smile she was wearing this entire time suddenly vanished. You are right to worry about that. I happen to know a family that likes to toy with people from the country. I just hope those guys take care of them. Who are you talking about? She laughed as I asked. You must really live in the boonies for you never to hear of night trade. They're a bunch of assassins that kill off corrupt nobles and rich bastards in this hellhole we used to call the capital. I didn't like where this was going, so tell me, where can I find this so-called family that plays with people's lives? She took out a map, and with a quick glance, I pretty much remembered the entire map. The capital had changed very little since the days of my friend's rule. She pointed at a large mansion. They live here, but they have a ton of guards. They will not let you in normally. They do look for poor and destitute outsiders. Maybe you can pretend and get to ask them about your kids if you play the pity card. My eyes must have activated because she was looking at me with a mixture of awe and fear. Don't you worry, if they know where my kids are they will tell me. If they dared harm them, however, they will wish this night trade you mentioned got to them before I get through with them. For those that harm my precious people, I have no mercy. I began to walk towards the main bridge. I had a plan. If I used the henge I could look exactly like someone from an impoverished village. This would get them to notice me. Once inside I would ask them if they had seen my kids. I, however, will have several shadow clones use the shadows and follow me. My shadow clones will find out if my kids are in their mansion and what is the truth about their little family. May the sage have mercy on their souls if they dared harm a hair on one of my kids. I slumped against the side of the road pretending to go to sleep. I heard the horse and the cart coming down the road. I knew what I needed to do, pretend like I was falling asleep. This was all part of my entry strategy. Sure enough, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Oh me, oh my, what an unfortunate young man. I think I will help him. Come on, young man, why are you sleeping on the road like that and not in your own bed? I pretended to awake and looked at her. I simply had the worst luck ever. I came looking for my girlfriend and her 2 brothers. The first thing that happens is a thief steals all my money. The city guards tell me I am wasting their time, beat me up, and kick me out of their office. Now I am without money, hungry, and tired from walking all over town. Why did she come to this awful place? We were happier in our village down south. I heard her pretend to cry. Indeed you are unlucky, but worry not. I know my family will help you. First I need to take you to my family home, give you a warm meal, and a place to sleep. Once you tell my father and mother, I am sure they can use their connections to help you find these people you care so much about. One of the guards near her helped me stand. My lady is a very merciful person, she is always helping those in need. Lean on me, and I will help you board the carriage. I got to the side of the rider, or at least I tried. She stopped me, and told me I should ride inside with her. After all, I was injured, tired, and hungry. The word mansion did not do this place justice. It was a palace, and I knew my shadow clones would have quite the challenge in finding everything I needed to find. I knew that I needed to buy some time. I walked with her towards the living room, and there they were, her parents. With all together they looked like a cozy little family. So tell me, do you have any idea why your girlfriend and her brothers would come to the capital? Is your village far from here? I looked at him and smiled. My village is under extreme taxation due to the empire. They once told me they wanted to come to the capital, make enough money to pay for the land our village was on, and thus lower the tax on the village. I, of course, told her it was never that easy. I sat down on a chair in front of him. My village is a few miles south of the capital. We are mainly traders, farmers, and ranchers. I was the one to heal the injured since I knew a bit of herbal medicine. As soon as I said that I felt a little dizzy, the clones found everything I needed. Indeed the family was a collection of sadists, and proud sadists at that. They wrote detailed accounts of what they did to people from outside the capital, mostly villages that were far from the capital. The torture, poisons, and horrors were quite familiar to me. My clones even informed me that they managed to get my gift into the food for tonight, food that the entire family was supposed to enjoy. You must be hungry, why don't you join us for dinner? I happen to be very interested in herbal medicine myself. I would like to hear how you treated the people of your village. The mother sure wanted another thing, since her diary spoke of intentionally infecting people with incurable illnesses, and using poisons to cause pain. After the meal, I will contact a friend in the military. He will send a few platoons of our best to find your precious girlfriend and her brothers. I promise you will see them again before you expect. I do need their names. Can you please tell me their names? I looked at him. As we walked towards the dining room, the food was already served. My girlfriend is named Seo. She has long silky black hair and a ponytail. Her brother Tatsumi has dirty blonde hair and green eyes, and her other brother has black hair and blue eyes, Ayasu. He looked like he was speaking with the guard, and the guard left. I knew he was saying that once I was knocked out I would be placed in the storehouse like they did to all the others. Please sit down, mind telling me of your herbal medicines. I can't wait to hear what you came up with. As we were all seated, and we all began to eat, I decided to drop my fake personality. Well, to tell you the truth, I am not much of a healer. My talents lie in something much more conducive to taking life rather than saving it. I am told that I am extremely talented in the art of torture and interrogations. They pretended to look. I took a small tube out of my pocket and decided to hand it over to his wife. What you hold in your hand is iocane powder. It smells, but doesn't touch or taste. She did smell it, and she began shaking her head. I smell nothing at all. I took the tube back and placed a cap on it. What you didn't smell is one of the world's deadliest poisons. It is flavorless, colorless, blends perfectly with liquids, and it is impossible to trace. I developed ways to make this extremely effective poison be slow-acting. You see, normally this thing kills within seconds of ingesting. Her father now was really fascinated by the look on his face. Why would you delay the poison? What purpose would it serve? You risk someone giving your intended victim an antidote. I smiled at him, except there is no antidote. The poison works by enlarging the pores in the victim's stomach. It makes it possible for the person's stomach acid to leave the stomach, and thus dissolve the organs of the victim. First, you feel an itching in the back of your throat, then the pain begins in your stomach, and begins to spread. Once it reaches the place where your bladder is, the victim will die within seconds. Even under an autopsy, the coroner will simply say that the victim died of a bleeding ulcer. I think you will also want to know that I know everything you three wrote in your diaries, and even what you would do to me. Except for the poison we talked about, it was added to the food you and your guards ate. Now the family began to laugh like maniacs, finally disregarding the illusion of the caring family, except you ate the food too. We might die, but you are going to die just like that whore you called your girlfriend and her two brothers. As I expected it, the look of pain on their faces and confusion was priceless. The father of the little sadist family was the first to die, then the mother whose insides came out as a putrid mixture as she tried to throw up to get rid of the poison. The girl looked at me angry, in pain, and confused. Why are you not dying like we are? I smiled and looked at her contorting face. I could not help but feel happy that my children were avenged. It is quite simple, I am immune to the poison. Having worked with it for so long, and taking small doses of it has made me immune to the poison. Now die, you lying little psycho, die for killing my daughter and my sons. I hope my friend has a special place in hell for you and your parents. The illusion of my henge finally came undone, and I ran towards the warehouse. What I saw made me wish I could revive them all, and make them suffer that death 1,000 times. Seo was mutilated beyond recognition, Tatsumi was quartered, burned, drowned, and lastly decapitated. Ayasa was the last to die, as he stretched out his bloody hand, and touched mine. I am sorry we failed, father. I am sorry we couldn't help the village. Some ninjas we turned out to be. I smiled at him, and I knew he suffered the longest, and didn't say anything about me or the training I gave them. They kept the secret even, as death was assured. You three have made me very proud, my beloved children. You can rest easy now, I have avenged you three. Go now my son, and tell your sister and brother the Psycho family was punished, and you three made me very proud. Go now, and enter the realm of the sage. Tell him I said you three are magnificent ninjas. My 3 children were dead, all I could think of was burning their bodies, and placing their ashes in a storage scroll. As I burned their bodies, and placed each in a separate seal, I couldn't help but cry, as I remembered everything that we lived together. I took the scroll, and placed a small kiss on it, as I sealed it shut. Are you done? We will want some explanation on what you have done tonight. I looked, and found a man wearing a particularly interesting suit of armor standing right in front of me. I knew that no one was near me, so where did this big guy come from? Not much to tell, the family of this mansion tortured, and killed my children. I avenged them, and did so in an equally painful manner. They killed my children. If I was to have any regrets, it's that I can't revive them, and kill them a few hundred times. So tell me, guardsman, are you going to try, and kill me? That made the big guy in armor begin laughing out loud. I didn't think what I said was that funny. Not at all, you see we actually were planning to kill the very same people you killed. Except you killed them before we could. I guess I should say that we are night raid. You probably heard about us. I looked at him, and smiled. Sure, I heard about your little group from a blonde beauty with the nicest tits I have ever seen. Out of nowhere, someone tackled me, and I found myself being hugged. The exact same blonde, but somehow her hair grew longer, and had kitty ears, and a tail, her hands looked like claws. Ah, that is the nicest thing anyone has ever said about me. You sure know how to flatter a girl like me. A young woman holding a black katana came towards me. Well, I am not too happy about you stealing my prey, but at least the boss will be happy the mission got done in time. What that woman hugging you should say is that you are coming with us. Our boss needs to hear an explanation why you did this. I walked towards her, and looked at her sword. Sure, I got nothing better to do anyways, nice sword by the way. It looks cursed to me. Must make it easier to kill people. But you people might not want to make me angry, you wouldn't want me to be angry. I happen to be vampiric in nature, and if you make me angry enough I might decide to make you all my dinner. Out of nowhere, a black dome appeared, and we all appeared outside a large building that was carved from the side of a mountain. The blonde woman with the nice rack was named Leon, the one with the nice sword was named Cain, and the one that was looking at me with a look of this guy is just a pathetic bug was named mine. The guy in the armor had to be the one that didn't surprise me as much, he reminded me of Lee, and might guy sometimes. He had the single strangest hairdo I ever seen, but he seems to have worked out a lot. He was a mass of muscles, and the fact that he was gay didn't trouble me one bit. Who am I to judge when I spent 3 days as a maid to get the information for my mission? The fact that I had to use the henge to appear as a woman, and had to act all manners of demure and cutacy, left me with a pretty open mind it seems. The place looked nice, the kitchen left something to be desired, and everyone got a room of their own, so at least I could have some privacy. Leon continued the guided tour until we found a Cain cooking what looked to be the carcass of a giant chicken. The Cain is sort of a wild child. Hey Cain, what are you doing? She just looked at us, and said that she was cooking dinner. I will give you Leon a piece, but nothing for that guy. He is not a part of night raid. I felt a bit upset, as she said, well fine, you can keep your roasted beast. I hope you choke on it. I don't need you to give me squat. Nobody ever did, why should you be any different? I began to walk away before Leon asked me what I considered an obvious question, where are you going? I told her since this particular group of killers was not going to give their guests any food, I needed to go out and hunt something for myself. She began to laugh, you know there are a lot of dangerous beasts in the area. We even saw a water dragon a few days ago. Do you still want to go hunt by yourself? I laughed at her attempt to scare me. I continued walking, and she for some odd reason continued walking behind me. A dragon would surely be a nice dinner. I sure hope nobody else killed it. I haven't had a dragon in days. As I came to the place where Leon told me the dragon was supposed to be, he came out of the water trying to look intimidating. How he really looked to me was something else altogether. He looked delicious. I used my katana to slice his hands off, and applying fire chakra through the blade, made the cut sear the flesh so no blood was wasted. I cut off his massive tail, and by the time I was done the one looking frightened was not me or Leon. No, Leon did look a bit more afraid than the now mutilated dragon. He came out thinking that we would be a pair of scared idiots, an easy meal you probably thought, but don't you know? When you mess with a vampire you always end up bone dry. I sank my fangs into his neck, and enjoyed the taste of his blood, and it was tasty. I must have looked rather scared since Leon didn't say a word. As I had my fill, I summoned 12 shadow clones and had them collect the remaining blood. They squeezed that dragon like he was a lemon. In the end, I had a storage scroll with 6 good pints of blood for a rainy day. Things didn't go bad in my storage scrolls. It made perfect storage places for food, or things you would think normally would rather go bad. I looked at what was left of the dragon, looking more like ground meat. Thanks for the meal, it was delicious. Say Leon, does you want to do something with what's left? Why are you looking at me like that? Why so serious? She walked over and looked at me, and then at my hands. My sword was strapped right back on my back. You look like a demon out of hell, your sword was on fire, and you were sinking your teeth into that dragon. No matter how that thing tried to push you away, you held on. I didn't understand why it was a big deal. I told you I was going off to get myself dinner, so I did. The stronger the person, the more satisfying and tasty the blood is. If I really needed to, I could survive for a month on tonight's dinner alone. Do you want some? I have 6 more pints of the good stuff, I don't mind sharing, you know. That is when from behind a tree came a woman who clearly lost an eye and an arm. She had a mechanical prosthetic and was showing off more cleavage than Leon was, and that is saying something. That is good to know. You know, dragon blood can fetch quite a bit in the black market. So you are the one that beat my people to their target. My name is Najenda, and I am the leader of Night Raid. I came to find you once. Came told me you were off hunting for dinner. It is only appropriate that now you tell me your name since I told you mine. I also would like to know why you killed our targets. What could possibly motivate someone your age to kill in such brutal ways? I walked over to a tree, and, as my hand began to glow, I hit a tree, causing the tree to fall to the ground, as if it was cut. The standing part of the trunk showed signs of my chakra having cut it down. I sat down on the piece of lumber, and looked at her. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, vampire ninja, the very last ninja, as far as I am aware of. As for age, I would suggest that you don't be deceived by my appearance. I am older than most of the people in this world. The first emperor was a good friend of mine. That should give you a good idea how old I am. I began to continue to strike the piece of lumber, as I continued talking with the leader of the little group that invited me here. As for the reason, that family lured and killed my kids. They may have been adopted, but I raised them since they were toddlers. I love them, as if they were indeed my flesh and blood. If someone killed your children, would you let their murderers remain unpunished? As I finished, I tossed one to Leon, and one to Najenda. I cut some rather sturdy stools out of the wood using my chakra, and they both sat down. I see, so you wanted to avenge the murder of your children. So tell me, Naruto, what do you plan to do now? Are you loyal to the Empire? You just told me that you were good friends with the first emperor after all. I got up, and I must have looked very angry because she stopped saying what she was going to say next. My friend wanted a place where people could live in peace, where children could grow up to be honest, honorable, and being taught how to be that good by their loving parents. This thing you called the Empire would have made my friend cry so much that he would die. I am a killer, and the corrupt creatures in that place are nothing but prey. If you want me to leave, you guys don't attack me. I see no reason why we should be enemies, but I will always hunt and always kill. I have done so before the Empire began, and I will do so long after the Empire is nothing but a memory. The real question is, what does Night Raid, and you, as their leader, want with little old me? It was one of your subordinates that invited me here after all. She smiled and looked at Leon. Actually, I think you are already part of Night Raid, since you pretty much were given a whole tour of our base. The only real question is, can you do anything besides killing? I walked over to her and offered my hand to help her get up from her stool. As she took hold of it, she saw a shadow clone do the same for Leon. I am a man of many talents. I had to be, since I had to take care of myself since I was a baby. Leon began laughing, and she gave my clone a hug that it dispelled, leaving hugging thin air. Looks like we got another wild child. Next thing this black-wearing hunk is going to say is that his first kill he did was when he was 8. I looked at my new boss, and began shaking my head, as I heard Leon, don't be ridiculous, Leon. I was actually 6. I had killed dozens of people by the time I was 8. I grew up in an arena pit after all. Najenda, Leon, and I walked back to the base. Several people I didn't know were standing there. One that looked a lot like an emo with green hair, which was kind of weird, and yet familiar in some ways. The next was a glass-wearing beauty, and last, but certainly not least, the little girl with pink hair that was looking at me before, as if I was a bug for her to crush underfoot. I really should punish you for taking your time killing your target, I really should. You even let this guy take the target all by his lonesome. Since most don't know, let me introduce you to our newest member of Night Raid. This is Naruto Uzumaki, and from what he tells me, he said he is both a vampire and a ninja. That made several people look a little worried. Didn't I tell you not to make me angry, or I would make you my dinner? What exactly did you think I meant? Bullet, as he introduced himself, told me that they figured I was a cannibal. He even said that there were several imperial officers and officials that like to eat human flesh. Well, I don't eat human flesh, so the question is, which is my room? Or do I sleep out here? The boss pretty much told Akame that my room was going to be the one right next to her, since for some reason it was always empty. Like we want to sleep anywhere near her. She tried to kill one of us when we tried to wake her up. Only because you tried to wake me up by groping me in Lubbock. I guess he was the super pervert from our little group. There always seems to be one. As we all walked into the dining room, she suddenly realized that she didn't have enough food for all the members, especially Leon, since she told me she was, as she called it, a hearty eater. I told her not to worry, just to show me where the kitchen was. A dozen shadow clones went out on a food gathering run, and 6 stayed with me ready to cook up what they found. It took them less than 10 minutes to find more than enough for a little feast. Me, and my 6 shadow clones that remained carried the platters of the food we just cooked up. I don't think I ever saw that many people look both shocked and salivating at the same time. Alright people, dig in before it gets cold. Don't worry about me, I had my dinner already. They all began eating with gusto. I guess they really liked my cooking. Akim did look a bit angry as she ate, guess she was upset about something I did. As everyone finished eating, and Leon patted her stomach, I decided a little after meal shock was called for, since they didn't even say a single word of thank you. And I didn't even use an ounce of poison in the food. I happen to know 1300 poisons, all which I can make with the stuff in the forest around this place. Not that it has anything to do with cooking. Agenda was the only one smiling. As I said that, well, at least I know who to go if I need some poison made or an antidote. What were those copies of yourself that carried the food, and the one that burst into smoke when Leon hugged him a little too tightly, if you don't mind me asking? I looked at her, and sat down on a chair in front of her. They are a technique I can use. They are called shadow clones. They can do everything I can, and when they get a significant enough hit or dispel, I get the memories of that clone. For instance, Leon is not wearing a bra. She laughed, as I said, well, technically this thing I am wearing is a sports bra, but I get what you are saying. So for tomorrow's target mine, and Naruto will take care of it. We are going after the only blood relative of the Prime Minister, which should really make the corrupt bastard know he is not as safe as he thinks he is. I looked at the pink-wearing girl, and then at my new boss. I don't need help taking care of one idiot. I can do this by myself. Guess mine pretty much wanted to say the same thing I wanted to say. I decided to go outside, and work out a little bit, just my usual warm-up. As I finished, I decided to take a bath in a nearby lake. It was quite refreshing, and the crocodile was a nice after-dinner snack. I got dressed, and decided to go to bed. I kept dreaming of my days with my kids, seeing them happily train, and how proud they made me feel seeing so enthusiastic. The last part was how I found them. It is something that would always make my blood boil. The spirits of my children looked at me, and smiled. Father, this was no one's fault, but our own. We should have listened to you, and looked beneath the underneath. Don't torment yourself with our deaths any longer. Find another happiness in your life, so we may rest in peace. Seo was always the one that was the most caring of the 3. It was no surprise to me that she was the one that would try to cheer me up. I woke up, and touched my face. I guess I must have cried in my sleep. I went to the office of my new leader, and knocked on the door. Is it you, Naruto? Come on in, I got to tell you some things about your target. Don't mind the clutter of checking reports about potential targets. As I walked in, I knew 2 things. She was definitely single, and if she had her office like this, she was liable to remain single for a long time to come. As I was saying, your target is Aiko, the only relative of Prime Minister Honest. He has a sick hobby of kidnapping young women, raping them, and then whipping them to death. As for your partner on this mission, she seems to be still asleep. Would you mind waking her up? I think you will not have any trouble doing that. I decided to walk towards the door, and told her, as long as she doesn't mind a broken door. As I walked up to her door, I saw a drawing that was supposed to be her, and the name mine written in big red letters. I beat my fist on the door. Mine woke the hell up. We got work to do. If you don't get up, I am doing the mission alone, and leaving you here to explain why you didn't come with me to the boss. I heard someone scrambling, and running towards the door I just ended beating my fist on. She came out wearing yet another pink dress. You're quite heartless, you know that. You should know it takes longer for girls to get ready. I looked at her. I was still feeling quite angry about my dream, and I had no patience for her insults. Then go to sleep early, wake up, and get dressed so that I don't have to waste time coming to get you. Unless you want to end my breakfast, I would watch what you say to me. Yes, I am heartless, but you are irresponsible. Now come on, we have a long way to go, and you can't run as fast as I can. She immediately said something that made me even angrier. Why not ask Lubbock to teleport us? I flat out told her that unlike her, he already left for his mission. Had you woke up early, he could have done that, but since you tried to have your beauty sleep, we have to walk. Why are you in such a bad mood? Do you really dislike having to do this mission with me that much? I had no time for this. I told her how she would feel to dream about how 3 of her kids were getting killed while she watched. My job, as far as I understood it, was to be her spotter and backup if needed. In a way, I saw why no woman would willingly sleep with a man, as I looked at him surrounded by his guards. This guy was hideous, and I mean he makes some dangerous monsters look almost human by comparison. If I was a guessing man, I would say this man's body was 90% fat. He simply made a potbelly pig look lean by comparison. If a big enough danger beast stayed him whole, the poor beast would die from a heart attack. So he is surrounded by a few dozen guards. Do you still think this will be easy for you, mine? She didn't even stop looking through the scope of her weapon when she answered me. Piece of cake, I can pick him off with my eyes closed. I still don't know why they sent you with me. I could do this alone. I knew nothing was as easy as it seems. My instincts were screaming that there was something that she was overlooking. I sent 5 clones to hide around us just to be sure. She took a deep breath, and from the weapon she was aiming, a light began to build up. As soon as she let out her breath, the weapon fired an array of light that shot right through her target's chest. As soon as he fell dead from the way his body was pushed by the firepower of mine's weapon, I knew that some of the guards had actually found us. In a matter of seconds, we were surrounded by 5 people. So I gather you are the personal guard of that idiot we just killed. Guys, there's no need to throw away your lives. You can leave here, and we both can go our separate ways. Several of the men looked at a man who was just laughing as I finished saying that. I wish it could be so easy, but if we don't capture you to explain what happened to our boss, the Prime Minister will kill all of us and have us for dinner. I counter your generous offer, you two surrender, and if you tell us where the rest of the nitrate is, we might even let both of you live. I guess it couldn't be helped. Well, I guess there was no way to avoid this. Well, I do hope you 5 have better luck in your next life, but a word to the unwise, next time check your surroundings before you try to corner your enemy. They all thought I was bluffing, till I clicked my fingers, and under each of the men a small explosion was set off, burning the men to ashes. I smiled, as I looked at the shocked look on mine's face. I walked over to the place where the man I spoke to had been. A shadow clone came out of the shadows, and handed me the man's hip pouch. Well, mine has no reason to stay around. Come on, we need to report our mission. Like I said to the boss, this job was simply too easy, and the enemy was as weak as they were stupid. They rushed to try and capture us, and when they thought they could get the rest of our guys, they asked us to be traitors. I know for a fact that there are no traitors with us. To ask is like saying that the Prime Minister embezzled so much of the Empire's own money to open an orphanage and help the needy, which never happens. I had to agree with mine, as she said that we both walked back to the point where we could be taken back to our base, without having to worry if some idiot is following us. As soon as we walked into the base, the agenda was waiting for us to hear our report. Mission successful, 1 corrupt bastard dead, and 5 of his own lead guards to boot. I guess I really had no reason to worry at all. Naruto took care of the 5 guards by himself. I just wish he told me when he planted those explosives. I looked at mine, as she finished giving her report. Why should you worry where the explosives were? They wouldn't go off unless I triggered them in the first place, as when I did that, well, you were looking for the target through the scope of your weapon. I just like to keep all possible situations in check. The boss smiled as I said, that is a good way to think about Naruto. Nice to see someone in our group thinking outside the box. You two must want a bath, some food, and rest. I need to speak with Naruto in private, but you are free to go, mine. Somehow I got the feeling this was not going to be a friendly chat, almost like someone had been keeping an eye on me. As soon as we were alone, she told me to follow her to her office. As soon as we entered, and the door was closed, she walked towards her desk, and turned around to face me. Why did you offer the chance for the elite guard to leave in peace? Don't you know that they could have told others your identities? I know you prepared for what actually I also would expect to happen, but I need to know why you offered them that choice. It was almost merciful on your part. I knew that she worried about the safety of the group, and I couldn't very well blame her for it. I am not merciful with the enemy, especially ones in league with the bastards that killed my kids. I had other plans for those guards. Had they accepted, I was planning to place a seal on the leader by shaking his hand. Once he got back to his superiors, and reported that he met a pair of assassins from Nitrate, the seal would activate, and everything within that building would be crushed to dust. I did not offer them any mercy. I was planning on using them to kill high-ranking officers in league with the Prime Minister. I saw her nod her head. Guess I jumped to conclusions. You were planning to use this to eliminate potential dangers to our group. I must admit that did not occur to me, as I heard the report from Lubbock. Why would you go to such extremes for a group you just joined? I looked at her, and asked her one question. Why does she assume I was doing it only for the group's benefit? I had a stake in this also. It was the Prime Minister that allowed the sick family that killed my kids to do as they pleased. They did it to improve the stock of poisons, and interrogation tactics for him anyway. This sick bastard pretty much had a hand in the deaths of my kids. If someone is in league with them, and they are corrupt or too blindly loyal to the bastard, I might want to put them to good use. Meaning the more of the troops loyal to the Prime Minister we get rid of, the better. She came up to me, and placed her hand on my shoulder. You certainly don't think like someone would expect from someone that looks as young as you do. I looked at her, and smiled. I told you once already, I was the best friend of the first emperor. Guess you need more proof. I was the one that hunted the dangerous beast he later used to make his imperial arms, and I was the best man at his wedding. If that is not enough, I was the godfather to his son. I've been alive for such a long time, that even the land has changed shape in the time I've been alive. I remember continents that are no longer there, rivers that became oceans, hills that became mountains, and forests that became deserts. I never lie to you, boss, and it hurts a little that you would think I would. She laughed as she took her hand off my shoulder and said that she too liked to think outside the box, and being so close to the first emperor, it would not be out of the realm of possibilities that I was loyal to the current emperor. I pulled on a nearby chair and sat down. My friend had a wonderful dream, a dream I didn't mind helping to make come true. I stayed with him as his prime minister, and even till his grandson took the throne. The kid would not listen to what I tried to teach him. I told him the empire exists thanks to the people, and, as emperor, it was his duty to be their constant protector. He was an adult by most standards, but he was also very much into things that made him happy. I got tired of his constant excuses, so I left. I built a home with a few friends, and we made a pretty decent living there for a time. I eventually adopted 3 little kids, and I raised them as my children. I taught them everything I could about being a ninja. I looked at her, and then looked down, shaking my head. You pretty much know what happened to my kids. I adopted because I can never have kids with anyone. Believe me, I tried, and the result was not pretty at all. She put her hand on my shoulder, and she asked me in a rather hushed voice about who that woman was. I told her she was my long-dead wife, the only girl I ever married. Her name was Susanna. She liked to be called Susie. She then grabbed my shoulder harder, and told me to look at her. Susie was the nickname of the sister of the first emperor. You mean to tell me you married the sister of the first emperor? I didn't see why she was so upset. I got up from the chair, and looked at her. She backed off from me. I did. I told you he was my best friend. We spent a lot of time together, and we built the empire that you know now. So, of course, I got to know his sister, and even married her. Why are you acting like this is a major issue? I am not of this bloodline, therefore the imperial arm that is in the castle will not react to me, and thus I am not eligible to ascend to the throne. As we walked back, I was called to the office of our boss, and I was supposed to go alone. Mine was perfectly fine with this, and she didn't mind it one bit. I somehow got the feeling that she wanted to talk about what she learned about me with the others, idle gossip, and such. The other reason was that she just flat out didn't like me at all. As I walked in, I saw our leader looking rather upset. Naruto, you just got back from a mission, and I should really let you rest, but I think I need your help dealing with a particularly tough target. You and I are going right now to meet the person who requested this target's elimination. It is traditional for the night raid to acknowledge or refuse to take on the elimination of a target in person. So my advice is for you to grab a bottle of that dragon blood you like so much, and come with me. It's something you will eventually have to do, and thus, as your leader, it is my responsibility to show you we do things. I still didn't understand why the meeting was in a graveyard of all places. As soon as I saw the woman crying in front of a grave, I understood why. I guess since we are pretty much killing people, the saying would fit, not that it made me very happy to hear it. No rest for the wicked, since one is punishing corrupt bastards that kill innocent people a wicked thing. The next mission I gotta do alone, or at least part of the mission. Agenda, and I met a young woman in a graveyard in the capital's poor district. She told us a rather disturbing story about how a captain in the guard was taking bribes from a sleazy oil merchant. He had her future husband killed to cover up some of his shady deals. He had the corrupt captain, a man by name Ogre, accuse him falsely of a crime. He was beheaded in the public square, and she was forced to watch the entire thing, from the whip down right to seeing the man she loved to have his head chopped off. Don't worry, miss, we will take care of this, and no one else will have to go through what you did, especially by the actions of that corrupt captain. Your loved one shall be avenged. She hugged Agenda crying, and thanked her over and over again. She was still in tears as she left. Why did she hug me, Naruto? You were the one that tried to make her feel better. I guess she must have found me scary, I told her, and she laughed as she went back to the hideout. I, on the other hand, wanted to have a word with Captain Ogre. The man fit the description exactly, scars in all the mentioned places on his face, wearing armor, and was rather large and physically fit. I walked over to him, and he looked at me with a strange look on his face. Captain Ogre, do you mind if we spoke privately? I have heard a few things. I would very much like your help in explaining. He faked a smile, and put his large hand on my shoulder. Sure, I don't see why not. I have a better idea. Why don't we go get a couple of drinks, and I will answer all your doubts, my treat. This screamed ambush to me, but it would make little to no difference to me. If he did plan to ambush me, 100 enemies would be no problem for me. As we walked into the bar, I asked for tea. He of course went, and ordered an alcoholic drink. You know my name, but what should I call you? What has troubled you so much that you found it necessary to ask me? Most people are too scared to even talk to me. The name is Naruto, and I keep hearing that you've been taking bribes, and helping corrupt business owners to use innocent people as scapegoats. He laughed as I said that, and took a drink from his mug. I sure as hell have been doing that, and I feel no remorse whatsoever for doing it. I was not always like this, you know. I was an honest, hard-working person. I sort of lost faith in the way the world is. I watched people rise in ranks faster than I ever did, simply because they came from wealthy families. I got so sick of being passed over for promotions, that I decided to become wealthy by any means I could. Nobody gave a damn about me, why should I care about others? You might be wondering why getting promoted is so important. It's simple really, everyone from the rank of captain and below get dismal retirement benefits. If I wanted to have enough to live on in my retirement I needed to be promoted. Now the only problem I have is that those blasted nitrate clowns are probably planning to try and kill me. What would you do with Naruto if you were a member of the nitrate? I finished my tea and looked at him with a smile on my face. Why would I challenge you to a duel? Come to think of it, would you duel me? Ogre laughed as he finished his drink and looked for some reason genuinely happy with what I said. Sure, I would duel you Naruto, but my duels are the kind where only one man makes it out of it alive. I just happen to know of a nice, spacious, and secluded spot for the duel. We will not be interrupted. As I walked into the alley I knew we were indeed surrounded. I smiled as the man took out his sword. So are the people here spectators? Or do I need to think this is an ambush? The man laughed as I said that and began nodding his head. These guys are just here to watch, wouldn't do much good to have a duel without people watching. This way at least there will be some benefit to one of us dying. They will learn a valuable lesson once you die. There was no protocol, no official start to the duel. Well, technically that was not true. The duel began when he first drew his sword. I waited for him to try and strike. I drew mine as soon as he swung his sword to strike me. My katana blocked him and even managed to strike the side of his thigh. Each time he tried to strike I blocked it and he got another small cut. Why don't you quit wasting your time, attack me or die? I held my blade aiming it at him. Oh, I wouldn't worry about me dying, and as for me injuring you you just don't know it yet. My attacks were not as improvised as my opponent believed. Everything was planned and every small cut had a purpose. Little by little his movements became more sluggish and easier to deflect. It got to the point that he could no longer hold his weapon and decided to use his fists. That was my cue to end the fight once and for all. When he was within striking range I cut off his hands, throat, and finally hit head clean off hitting the floor. Spectators my foot, they actually came out of their hiding places and tried to attack me. My shadow clones made short work of the lot, and in the end, there were the dead bodies of dozens of mutilated guards, and the dead body of Captain Ogre. His head impaled in the sword he loved to use. I went back to base, and reported my mission to be complete. Ogre, and a few of his guards were dead. Legenda looked at me, and smiled. She stood up, and sat on her desk while looking at me. I am aware of that. Leon thought you needed backup, and went after you shortly after you left. She tells me you were particularly brutal in the way you left his body, especially the way you left his head. Do you think that was necessary? I looked at her, and I smiled. I actually accepted to fight an honor duel with him. Those men were supposedly only spectators since I killed the captain. Their little ambush failed, and they attacked me. This means to me he never had any intention of fighting me honorably, and this was an ambush plain and simple. I looked at my sword, and began checking it for any damage. As he did not honor our agreement, I felt it was only fitting that I show him the same amount of honor as he did me. I sheathed my sword, and looked at her waiting for her reprimand. I guess that explains it, but you know he was very much liked by most of the guards under his command. This could actually cause these people to develop a vendetta against us. I looked at her, and smiled, and I really tried to be sincere. These people would already want us all dead, since we are basically killing the people that are loyal to Prime Minister Honest. In their mind, we are evil people that are trying to destroy the Empire. I wouldn't worry too much if I find any that use Imperial arms. I will try to show them the error of their ways. I somehow feel it would be a wasted effort if the person is so blind they can't see how corrupt the Empire has become. Agenda smiled, and nodded her head, as I finished saying that. You may be right Naruto, I was once a loyal Imperial guard myself. It took me seeing the evil that the corrupt people of the Empire did for me to see the truth. That might actually help you show them the error of their ways. I got up and looked at her. Now if you will excuse me, boss, I have to go to take a bath and go to sleep. Chances are I will be doing recon in the capital tomorrow. I don't know why she found that funny, but she started laughing so hard she began touching her abdomen. And here I was thinking I would have to break the news to you easier. You are right, you are doing a reconnaissance mission tomorrow, and you are going with mine. It would be a good opportunity for both of you to work out your differences. She was right. I didn't like this one bit. She was the leader of the night raid, so I really had no choice, but I really didn't like this one bit. I decided to take my bath and try to relax a little, or at least I tried to do so. Once I was taking my bath and decided to sit down in the bath area and soak my troubles away. Someone walked in, as naked as the day she was born. I for once was glad it wasn't a Kane. She would have tried to kill me. The person that did walk in was also a problem, but for different reasons. Leon just walked over to me, and she was smiling like she found a treasure. Boy, am I glad I decided to take my bath now. You can help me wash my back, and I can certainly do the same for you. I also have a few questions for you Naruto, hope you don't mind answering them for me. I have been curious about your possible answers a lot lately. I told her to take care of the other parts I shouldn't wash, and tell when I could wash her back. She did rather quickly, and I began washing her back. It sure didn't help that she was pressing her back into my hands. So mind telling me why you didn't take any other member as a backup for your mission to kill Ogre? I told her that it was not necessary, and I could very well take care of this on my own. So you can take care of killing someone that strong. So Naruto, do you have a thing for women with big tits? I finished washing her back and turned away. I was not going to answer that question. It was simply too embarrassing to answer. That is when she grabbed me and began washing my back rather roughly. I guess she was not happy that I didn't answer that question. Why would it matter if I like women with big oppi? She began pressing hers against my back and using them to wash my back. Damn these hormones. I looked down and saw something I wish I had better control over. Let's just say that part of me was reacting to her, and she was smiling as she saw that. Well, you might not want to answer my question, but you have a very honest body, Naruto. What's the matter, Naruto? Are you a virgin? I took the bucket near me that had cold water and poured it down on myself. I went back to the bathing area and sat down on the stone floor that made up the giant bathtub. It was more like a miniature pool from the way I saw it. I am not a virgin, I am actually a widower. And yes, my wife did have a very nice pair of tits. She was shy and timid when I first met her, but she became rather assertive and direct during our marriage. I came here to take a bath and relax, and now I was basically forced to remember one of the saddest moments in my entire life. Hope that satisfies your curiosity, Leon, at least I hope it does. Otherwise, you opening that old wound of mine and pouring salt into it would be a waste. She sat down right next to me. Sorry about that, it's just I don't know you very well, and since we are going to be working together, I figured that it might be a good idea to get to know you better. I am not a virgin either, but unlike you, it was not my choice. I was abused rather badly when I was a teen. I had not developed into the beauty you know now then. How could I if I suffer from constant malnutrition? The bastard has a thing for girls or even boys that look like little kids. The only way I could escape that fate was for him to lose interest in me, so I did everything I could to work out, steal money or food to keep well fed. Sure enough, as my figure began to show that I would be the bombshell you know now, he threw me into the streets wearing the old rags he found me in. I became a member of Nitrate after I stole the Imperial Arm and killed that bastard with my own hands. Now that I think of it, I think he was the brother of Prime Minister Honest, and if he's anything like he was, I sure pity the poor emperor. I got up and began to dry myself. I don't pity the man who made the dream my friend, and I made it real into the corrupt nightmare that it is today. I hate him, and mark my words, he will die. She began to dry herself, and I could tell she was looking at me. Hate is an awful thing to base your life on, Naruto. It will devour you from inside, and leave you a husk of what you could have been. I rather say we punish them for the evil they do to the innocent people of the Empire. So let me get this straight, I have to look for information, and possibly Imperial soldiers in the possession of Imperial arms with mine. We are supposedly perfect because no one knows either one of us is a member of Nitrate. That part makes sense. I looked at them, and began shaking my head. So I came on time, but the other person that is supposedly going on the same mission is not here. I am guessing punctuality is not a big thing with mine, is it? I would never have believed it was possible. If that girl had long silver hair, and it was made to stand straight up, I would even imagine her saying how she got lost on the road of life. It is amazing that after all this time I seem to remember Kakashi. So boss, does this mean I will be doing this mission solo? I don't mind, but it is your decision. Agenda smiled at me in such a way that if I wasn't what I was, I would be quite worried. Actually, Naruto, I need you to go and wake her up. As much as I would love to allow you to go alone on this mission, it simply is out of the question. Should you meet an Imperial guard with an Imperial arms, it would be impossible for you to defeat that guard, since you don't have an Imperial arm yourself. I was almost tempted to remind her that when two people who have Imperial arms fight each other, one of them is guaranteed to die. These weapons may be absolutely useful, deadly, and in some cases absolute lifesavers, but many people tend to forget that these weapons actually use the body parts of some of the world's deadliest beasts. I was simply not in the mood to spend hour after hour lecturing her about things she should already know. Honestly, sometimes I think this lady forgets who is the kid, and who is the elder in this particular situation. I walked over to Mine's room, and I could have sent a shadow clone to wake her up. I could have just gone around and entered through her bedroom window, but I wanted this recon mission over and done with as soon as possible. I began to slam my fist against her door. Mine, we got a mission, if you aren't up and dressed in less than 10 minutes. I am going to do this mission alone, and you can explain to the boss why you weren't there. I should also say that we are supposed to pretend we are a couple out buying things we need as a pair of newlyweds, which means we will be buying a lot of things that most guys find utterly embarrassing. I heard someone jump from her bed and began to sound like a tornado had gone off in her room. She came out wearing the same pink dress she always seems to wear. Alright, then let's go and buy some things. I am giddy to find out what you might consider embarrassing. I have lived through thousands of years, fought in wars that were horrific, and seen the death of thousands of people in a single day. Nothing, and I mean nothing that I ever saw was as horrible as watching me eat out in public. If someone told me that one of her parents had been an animal, my vote would be on a pig. Kakashi used to complain about my table manners, but this girl had me beat. She didn't use her utensils, she did not drink her liquids, she stuffed them into her face, chewed them like modesty had gone out of style, and drank her liquids like she had been lost in the desert for a year. If this was her attempt to make me feel embarrassed, I would say her attempt had been an absolute success. She also managed to kill my appetite. I looked at the waiter, and he looked at her. He ran, and brought me a milky drink, and told me to help settle my stomach. I promptly thanked him, as I continued to watch her pack away food in a way not even Choji could. How in the world did she eat like that, and still look so thin? I mean, where in the world was she packing away all that? She finally finished eating, and when I asked for the bill, the cook came out, and flat out told me it was in the house, as long as I took her away from the restaurant, as quickly as possible. People seeing her eat was ruining their reputation. She decided to go into a rather open lingerie shop. I watched her look at some silky garments, and I was sorely tempted to remind her she simply didn't have the figure to wear those kinds of clothes. I just kept calm and quiet, as I heard several of the other customers laugh their heads off. My guess is that they were laughing at me. I used to complain that my late wife had a temperament that could make a saint use foul language, that would make a veteran sailor blush, only 3 hours later, and I realized that in reality compared to mine, my late wife was an absolute angel. She ended up buying a pink dress, with matching pink lacy lingerie to match, and I had to be the one to pay for it. 3 hours of walking around the capital, 3 hours of seeing places I never expected to find in the capital, and 3 hours of enduring her constant teasing and mocking. It was after all that she finally decided to call it quits, since we had found not one Imperial arm-wielding guard. Naruto, you were not embarrassed to see so many people wearing those clothes. You never complained about how I ate my food, or how I behaved in public. What gives? Most would have been yelling at me to behave or be embarrassed, but nothing I did faced you in the least. I looked at her, as I was drinking a sip of my tea. I might look young, some people may confuse me for being inexperienced, and some not looking like I should be able to describe the clothes they had in that shop, much alone seeing people wearing those types of undergarments. I took another sip of my tea, and looked at her, but I am older than I look, and unlike you, I have been married a few times. I have seen clothes that make the ones in that shop look chaste. I have lived through things most people would never believe, and so take it from me, you are at least 1,000 years too young to be able to get under my skin. This entire time has been an absolute waste of time, money, and effort. So why don't you go home, and put away all these things you bought? I am going to stick around here, and see if I can succeed where we failed. She got up, and slapped me across the face. She must be pretending she is the disapproving wife now. She left with a huff, and looked like to every guy around me that I was pretty much destined to get regular doses of cold shoulder, and sleep on the living room couch. I saw something that caught my attention, and I decided to walk towards where that something was headed. It looked like a young girl walking her dog, except I thanked my eyes. I could tell that the dog and the girl were anything but normal. I walked over to them, and smiled, as I looked at the puppy. Nice puppy you got there, you seem to be an Imperial Guard, am I right? She looked at me, and smiled. Saluted me, and looked at me with a great deal of pride clearly visible in her eyes. I am Imperial Guard Sir Ubiquitous, and this little guy is my Imperial Arms. I like to call him Koros. Now mind telling me what are you doing in the capital? And what is your name? I looked at her Imperial Arms, and I could see who it really was. I had been the one to capture the part that this weapon was made from. I am Naruto Uzumaki, and I have been away from the capital for a very long time. I have been hearing that the night trade has been going around the capital. So tell me Seryu, what do you know about the night trade? She looked at me like I had lost my mind. I know quite a few things about it actually. They are a bunch of terrorists that have been murdering people in official positions or supporting the empire. I believe they are the ones responsible for the murder of my esteemed mentor and commanding officer. He was the man I respected the most. His name was Ogre. I think you might have heard of him. I looked at her, and with my eyes, I could see some horrible things had been done to this young woman. Her body had dozens of weapon systems to replace several major organs and body parts. I could see that something must have happened to her to push her over the edge of sanity. If she was ever going to be able to see the truth, I might need to do something about her insanity first. It is sad to hear that you mentioned this man, but you didn't mention your father. Mind telling me about him while we walk together? There are a few people I would like you two to meet. Karasbos will make sure we are not interrupted in your guided tour of the capital. She smiled, and told me it would be a pleasure to give me that guided tour. As we walked towards the graveyard, she began telling me about her father, how he was killed by bandits while on duty, and that is why she hates the night trade, since they were no better than the people that killed her father. See, that is the reason why I became an Imperial Guard, to begin with, to make criminals suffer, as they have made the innocent suffer. I am the hand of justice that will not stop until all those that prey on innocent people meet their end. A little psychotic, but I guess after everything she has gone through it would be strange if she wasn't the way she was. I stopped at a few places from a row of over 24 graves. Do you know what these graves have in common with Seryu? She began to look at each name, and she closed her eyes for a second. She kept muttering something while she had her eyes closed. All these people were accused of being traitors to the empire, and executed for their crimes. Why do you need to ask about the graves of traitors, Naruto? I placed my hand on her imperial arms, and just as my hand touched it, I said something that she did not expect. Kurobo's official restraint active. Sleep till I release the restraint. Her weapon fell into a fetal position, and closed his eyes. Actually, these people were falsely accused of treason. They were suffering under the extortion racket of a very corrupt oil trader. Your mentor Ogre actually framed them to get rid of them, as a favor to the oil trader, and because this trader gave him quite a bit of a bribe each month. She looked at me with a look of complete rage. You lie. Captain Ogre would never do something like that. I couldn't help but to feel pity for this young woman, all the horrors she must have endured to earn the respect of Ogre. Since I drank his blood, I could see the many horrible things Ogre put her through. Actually, I am telling you the truth. I will tell you another. What happens when a superior officer dies without naming a successor? You probably don't know this either. Well, if that happens, his direct subordinate gets promoted to the position of the dead superior. She looked at me, as if it was impossible that I blocked her attack so easily. Your father was the direct superior to Lieutenant Ogre. In case I need to spell it out for you, Ogre was not going to be named a successor or even get promoted. He used cheap muscle enhancements from the experimental lab. Your father did not approve of using such untested methods. He valued the lives of his men far too much. One night when the two were off doing a patrol outside the capital, Ogre and your father fought off against several dozen bandits. The bandits were dealt with, but just as your father was turning his back to check if the bandits had any more people hiding nearby, Ogre stabbed him in the back. The mentor that you respected so much and valued his advice killed your father. She screamed at me that I shouldn't even know that since I told her I had been away from the capital for too long. She was looking frantic, as she appeared to me trying to deny the fact that Ogre murdered her father. I am a vampire Seryu. I have the unique ability to see the memories of the people whose blood I drink. In case I need to explain, first, let me ask you, do you know what secret section 6 that the first Prime Minister founded is? She told me since it was a secret section no one, but the Prime Minister would know. I knew that they had changed a few facts in their history. I think Hope is actually changing many things in the official documents to suit his needs. Secret Section 6 is the creation of a secret unit of assassins, whose main purpose is to eliminate all traitors to the Empire, be they officials or civilians. This group is tasked with the traitors' deaths, as a means to protect the Empire and its citizens. You are wrong about one thing that you told me today, Seryu. The Night Raid is not a group of traitors or even terrorists. The name of the group under Secret Section 6 is the Night Raid. I know all these things because I am the first Prime Minister of the Empire, and I am also the man who killed Ogre in an honor duel. We both agreed to fight. She looked at me, and that is when her weapons began to fire against me, first her hand, then her elbow, and she even fired rifle rounds at great speed from her legs. I blocked everything she fired, and evaded that which was too close for comfort. Koros activate. We are in front of one of those miserable traitors. We get to avenge Ogre, and let this criminal face true justice. Koro, why wouldn't you listen? I looked at her, and smiled. Kurobas is the name of the creature your little weapon was made from. I should know I was the one to defeat, and capture him. Since I was involved with the creation of the Imperial Arms, I also know the right commands to disable, destroy, and even turn them against their bonded partners. I looked at her, and again I could not help but to feel pity for her. Seryu honor duels are duels to the death that both parties agree to participate in, and they are 100% legal. I have committed no crime, and I have told you no lies. Come with me to the Imperial Library, and I will show you a copy of the document dealing with the foundation of Secret Section 6. She finally calmed down, and she broke down in tears. I released her friend, and in truth, I may have captured him, but he was never my enemy, to begin with. After all, Kurobos was the descendant of one of my dearest and most loyal friends. We walked towards the library, and she kept looking at me. Once we made it inside, I took a key from one of my pockets, and opened the secret door to the file repository. The second the door opened, I could tell she knew I was not lying anymore. It was plain to see on her face. I handed her the copy of the document, and, as she finished reading it, she broke down in tears, and as soon as she handed me back the document, I placed it back in the appropriate bookshelf. Prime Minister Naruto, what does this mean? Why is Section 6 active? I looked at her, and smiled while my eyes were active. She found my gaze to be too scary to look at, so she looked down to her feet. Seryu means that the Empire is in danger. Traitors are doing things that undermine the sanctity of the Empire, and the safety of the citizens of the Empire. Imperial Guard Seryu Ubiquitous, you said that you wanted to be an instrument of justice, or so I understood you to say. As such, I am here asking you, how sincere are you in that desire? Will you join the section, and become a true ally of justice, or will you continue to aid the traitors of the Empire? Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. And make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.